everyone.
Tessa and Josh here from Conscious Travel Community. We are just about to depart out of Melbourne.
Out of an empty airport.
It is so quiet around here. Literally no one is here. We're heading to Greece, so we'll just see if we can get out of the country. Here we go. Okay, we have been waiting at the airport for about 3 hours. And now all of a sudden there is life. People are starting to come. We'll see how we go about the exemption to travel. Okay, we finally have our boarding passes. We have had a lot of issues, to say the least. First of all, border security came to speak to us and had to give us a letter of exemption. So usually online you'd apply for it, but as we are already residents and live in the UK, we didn't need it, but then we had to wait for them to approve it over the phone. And that was all fine. They gave it to us straight away, but then flying into Greece, there's a new system where you need to have a QR code to enter. And so we applied for that online, but the QR code did not come through straight away. And they told us we had to wait for the QR code to come through before we could board. And so we were just waiting.
Called Greece a few times to try and get them to fast track the whole situation.
We called immigration, we called passport control in Greece to try and fast track it, but then they let us fill out a digital form. So we are all good to go.
Good to go.
Let's see how it is on the plane. All right, some requirements for our flight is a mask and a shield. Hello everybody, we have made it to Doha. We're currently sitting in the lounge. It's beautiful here. We had a escort pick us up, an employee from Qatar pick us up from the gate and take us to the lounge, which has been amazing. We've had hot showers, and here most people are wearing masks. Definitely if you go to get food you need to wear a mask, but it's quite lax actually. So we'll see what the next leg of our flight brings. We are boarding our flight to Athens. Ooh, here we go. Here we are on the last leg of our trip. We've been traveling for about 26 hours.
Last flight to go, one more hour.
We have got 1 more hour flight to go. So we're currently in Athens and we're heading to Corfu. And we'll see how we go. Hi everybody, we have made it to Corfu in Greece, and so I'm just going to answer a few questions that people had in the group in Conscious Travel Community. The first one was about the face shields and the masks that we wore while travelling and whether they were worn the whole time. At the beginning of the flight there was an announcement to keep them on, although shortly into the flight the face shields came off, but the masks were kept on for most of the flight. We were really lucky that we were able to move seats. So we went to the front of the plane and there was no one around us. We had a whole row to ourselves each, and it was definitely very well spread out. The next question was around the social distancing and the seating on the plane. It was really interesting when we first got on the plane. Actually, everyone was all positioned at the back of the plane. There was distancing between the seats but there was also people that didn't know each other next to each other. So I think it depended on how many people were on the flight, but we were also mostly in the back part of the plane together, which then when we moved to the front of the plane, there was no one around us. The food service was all the same. The air hostesses wore masks the whole time, but the food was, all the same. The masks were provided. That was another question that we had. We were traveling with our own, but if you didn't have one, you could just get one from the airline. Also on one of the flights, they gave us a little bag that had mask, sanitizer, and gloves in it if we wanted to wear them as well. There was a question in the group about the masks, whether they were a government requirement or the airline requirement, or whether they were by choice. It was definitely recommended, and then upon looking up this question, I saw on the Qatar Airways, which is who we flew with, they had this as a requirement to fly with them. So if you choose not to wear them, I think they could potentially refuse you to go on the flight. We also flew with Olympic Air as well, and it was a requirement with them to wear a mask. Not a face shield, but definitely a mask the whole time on the flight. One of the questions in the group was about how did we leave Australia while there's a travel ban on. So Josh and I moved to the UK. I moved in 2017 and Josh moved in 2018. So we actually, while we're residents in Australia and have citizenship in Australia, we're also residents in the UK, and we were able to prove that we live there, and that's just by the last time that we visited Australia. So when we went to leave, they did ask us when our last time was in Australia and how long we stayed in Australia. Originally our flights were only to Australia for about 10 days, so it meant that we were not going to stay there long term, and it wasn't like we were travelling on a holiday, and we were actually returning home. Some of the other exemptions, and you can look them up on the government website, are around if you get exemption to visit someone who's sick, and to an exemption to travel for work as well. We didn't apply for an exemption because we fell into the category of not needing to apply for the exemption because we ordinarily live overseas, but maybe it would speed up the process a little bit if you did apply for that and just use the example that you usually live in the UK or in another country. The hold up at the airport was only about 5 minutes, speaking to border control, and they phoned the embassy to allow us to leave. One of the questions in the group was about Greece and whether things are open. So there is definitely a lot of restaurants and cafes open, but not everything is open. There's no day tours or anything at the moment, although that's all going to change next week. So from the 15th, there is no 14-day quarantine for the UK. So if they choose to visit Greece, they don't need to quarantine, which means there'll be a lot more people travelling to Greece as of next week. And so a lot of the tour companies and things will start to open up from then. And so while there's things to do, there's restaurants, there's supermarkets, and all of that are all open. Not everything is open, but that's fun for us. We've just been enjoying the quietness of summer in Greece. Another question in the group was around entering Greece. So there was random checks, tests done, COVID testing. It wasn't the same as what I've seen previously with the really long tube up your nose and into the back of your head. It was just a swab on your tongue. So I actually was selected to do the COVID testing, and it was just a swab at the back of my tongue, and there was a line of about 2 people in front of me, so there was not a hold up or anything, and the process was really easy. I haven't actually heard back from them, but I'm sure they'd get in contact with me if they needed to. So the process was actually, before we left Australia, we needed to download a QR code, which allowed us to enter Greece. So in that process, you needed to complete information about where you're staying, contact numbers, next of kin, who you're traveling with, passport details, all of that sort of thing. So we already provided that information before we arrived. And then when they did the COVID testing, they wrote down the number of my application so that they could link my test to that information. You need to apply for the QR code 48 hours before you depart, and this was our biggest hold up. We didn't realise that that was the requirement, and we applied for it on the day that we were leaving, and the QR code didn't come through. So Qatar actually said to us that we wouldn't be able to fly until we had that QR code. So we waited for 2 hours at the airport. It still didn't come through, but they allowed us to complete a form a different way and still fly. But just something to think about if you are travelling to Greece, you'll need to download the app, and I'll pop the link in the video so you can download that and access the code. And then when you arrive, you just show them that you have the code, they wave you through, and they'll either tell you to go for the testing or to not. We are in Greece, and quarantine is not needed for Australian residents. So I'm travelling on my Australian passport to enter here. I also have an EU passport as well. And as of the 15th, if you're in the UK, you will not need to quarantine either. And I've answered the question about testing at the airport. I think that's about it, but if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Just comment below on the video or send me a message and I'll get straight on it. Have a great day.